Chance.
Nice to meet you.
And Dr. Cruz.
Nice to meet you.
And today's issue is going to look at the effects of testosterone on ruthless homicide. So, what is testosterone?
Well, testosterone is the principal male sex hormone affecting behaviour and physical development. It has previously been related to dominance, aggression, sensation and overall activities. Here we have a picture of what the actual molecule of testosterone looks like.
Thank you, Dr. Chance. And we have Dr. Cruz. You've previously conducted research into the effects of testosterone on aggression. So, Dr. Cruz, tell us about your research.
Well, I took a sample of 20 young one prisoners and studied plasma testosterone levels on aggression and verbal aggression. 6 plasma samples were drawn and tested for each individual. Psychological testing was also carried out on hostility, anxiousness and social desirability.
So what did you find from this experiment?
Well, the main finding was a significant correlation between conviction for aggressive crime and testosterone.
What exactly does that mean?
Basically, those convicted of violent crimes had higher levels of testosterone than those convicted of non-violent crimes. However, it should be noted that these levels are not abnormal for men who have not committed crimes.
Alright, do you think the sample size is representative?
Well, it was a rather small sample size, so it may be difficult to generalise. However, it's difficult to get a bigger sample size as prisoners are unwilling to give blood.
Dr. Chance, have you addressed this at all in your research?
Well, in fact I have. In my experiment I'm going to extract the testosterone from saliva instead of blood, making more people willing to participate.
Alright, that's a good idea. Out of interest, is there a difference between testosterone in the blood and the saliva?
Yeah, there is. Among men, about 2% of the testosterone within their blood is free, whereas the rest is bound to other sex hormones, and only the free portion is biologically active and able to be tested. In saliva, however, all the testosterone is free, and therefore we can test all of it.
Oh, so tell us a bit more about your study that you're going to conduct.
I'm going to be testing the levels of testosterone in the saliva of prison inmates compared to the characteristics of their crime.
Oh wow, like what?
Characteristics such as violence, was it planned, did they know their victim, whether the consequences were intended, and the level of cold-heartedness.
Okay, so who are you going to be testing?
My participants consist of 230 inmates from a larger sample of 692 inmates, studied by Dabbs et al. From a state prison. They have a mean age of 19.8 years old. Each inmate had a testosterone score obtained for testing the saliva sample in the earlier study. The crime record was classified as then violent or non-violent. Violent crimes included murder, manslaughter, robbery, armed robbery, rape and child molestation. Non-violent crimes included burglary, drug offences and theft. The present paper only deals with violent crimes.
So you have a large range of participants, and we've actually got some footage of the research. Should we play that now?
Yes, I think you should.
Okay.
Okay, so today's experiment, we're going to start with subject 1, who's from the murder category. So, here comes subject 1, who's being glum as normal. If you'd just like to take a seat. Okay, today what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to swirl your mouth out with this water. Thank you very much. Now, without swallowing, I'd like you to spit into this vial. Thank you very much. Now, we're going to freeze this sample until it can be tested later on. Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. That has been done for the day. Thank you. Now we've got subject 2, who's from the robbery category. So, we welcome our robber, subject 2. Would you like to come in? If you just take a seat, thank you very much. Okay, what I'd like you to do today is swirl your mouth out with that glass of water. Lovely, thank you very much. Now, without swallowing, could you spit into that vial for me, please? Okay, we're going to freeze this sample as well until further testing. And that's all for you today. Thank you, subject 2. That's great, thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Okay, welcome back to Psych Etc. We're back here with Dr. Chance and Dr. Cruz to look at the results of Dr. Chance's study. So, did you find anything significant?
In fact, I have. We combined the results of the manslaughter and the murder categories to produce an overall kill category, which produced significant results.
Oh wow, what did these results show?
What we found that testosterone was related to aspects of the characteristics. Higher testosterone inmates more often killed acquaintances than lower testosterone inmates, and they more often intended and planned their action.
Oh wow, so what about the other categories?
Unfortunately, these results were not shown in other categories, but this could be due to the small sample sizes.
Yeah, the sample size was limited, and limited sample sizes often have negative effective results. Isn't that right, Dr. Cruz?
Yes. I had a similar problem in my research, as my methodology led to a number of unwilling participants. This made my results hard to generalise, as they may not have been representative of the population.
So do you think your sample size is representative of the population?
Well, it was larger than any previous studies testing testosterone and aggression. However, there are biases which may be problematic.
What were those?
When the sample was categorised according to crime, the group sizes were very uneven. Although we did take averages during statistical analysis, the sizes of the groups may still have affected the results. The largest group size was 68 and the smallest was 19.
So overall, can a causal relationship be concluded from your research?
Unfortunately, this cannot be shown, as we found testosterone was related to familiarity and intent for homicide, but not for assaulting, robbery, or sexually violating another person. Crimes involving a range of motives, but homicide more than other crimes may implicate motive which bear upon testosterone.
So what does all this actually show us?
Basically, we cannot determine whether testosterone causes the characteristics of the crime, or whether the crime causes the high levels of testosterone.
Now let's move on to the real-life applications and implications.
Testosterone as a risk factor should be contextualised within the bigger picture. There are a number of other factors that influence offender behaviour, and it could be argued that these share testosterone levels rather than the act of homicide, predisposing the individual to homicidal behaviour.
You could also apply the concept of the death to stress model, which makes the assumption that behaviour is a result of predisposition or vulnerability, coupled with stress from real-life experiences. Behaviour in this case would be homicide, and predisposition would be high levels of testosterone. And there could be a number of environmental stresses that push the individual to commit a specified crime. It could also explain why not all individuals with high testosterone levels actually commit callous acts.
A further issue with this is that knowing there is a correlation has little real-life application. For example, it cannot be used to predict offender behaviour, as it is impossible to measure everyone's testosterone levels before offending, and even if it were possible, it would be unethical to label someone as a risk for homicidal behaviour before they've actually done anything wrong.
That is a good point. It also can't be used within the justice system either, as it can't actually establish a causal relationship between testosterone and ruthless homicide. But are there any positive applications?
There are indeed. It should be noted that it is possible to lower testosterone levels. This has potential positive applications within the prison system. For example, if they're particularly problematic, violent inmates, measures could be taken to lower the testosterone levels. This can be achieved naturally through the control of diet and increase of exercise, or pharmacologically through the use of medications such as anti-androgen.
That is a very viable solution. Although due to ethical issues, prisoners would have to comply of their own free will, and it could be a struggle to get them to participate if they do not want to make the change. Free testosterone is a critical hormone for not only sex drive and muscle building, but also for cardiac function, brain function, bone health, mood, and other vital body functions. Furthermore, lowering testosterone can lead to a decrease in positive affect and energy, so an appropriate balance for the individual situation would need to be assessed.
It's an interesting point. I guess it could be argued that it's morally wrong to manipulate people's hormones in order to change their behaviour or outcomes. But on the other hand, if the individual is a threat to others' well-being and they are willing to comply, it could be a sound solution. So, overall, how do you think this research holds up against criticism?
Well, despite the flaws in our experimental design of the research, there's been a lot of evidence to strengthen our findings, but very little to contradict it.
There was a study of men and women who had not been in prison, conducted by Dabbs et al., that increased testosterone for 5 days. They then took daily measures of mood via self-report, finding that increasing testosterone also increased hostility. This shows that the general findings regarding differences in behaviour from Dr. Chance's study may also show generalisability to the wider population, not just criminals.
Another study by Dabbs et al. Showed that there were higher testosterone levels in criminals who have been convicted of violent crimes compared to non-violent crimes.
So overall, it does appear that there's a large body of evidence supporting your findings that testosterone is positively correlated with violence and ruthlessness. with perhaps some useful applications within the prison system. So thank you, Dr. Cruz and Dr. Trant, for joining me today, and thank you at home for watching. We'll be back next week in an attempt to answer, is your husband a sociopath? Thank you and goodbye for now.